Hope you're all doing great. All right, so as I mentioned in my announcement and in my feedback to you guys, I did want to take a couple of your logos and just show you some tricks with them. I did mention a few things to several of you, kind of over and over again. I wrote a list for myself of what I wanted to talk to you guys about. But the biggest thing I need to go through with you guys is how to separate your color fields with areas of background color. And I had mentioned this about using something other than a black line to delineate your space. So there's a few different ways I may have phrased it, but it's something which I think a lot of you could benefit from. So I do want to go through that. I'm also going to go through creating outlines on your text, which will solve problems such as this one. And I also want to talk about creating text on a curve, kerning text, and the pros and cons of different logo layouts. Okay, so I did select 4 logos here, one for each client that we've been working with. I wanted to get a selection of stuff that would help me address the issues that I keep coming up with, and also show you some interesting tricks and things like that to help you. So there's no reflection on the work or anything like that with these logos. These were just good ones for me to demonstrate different techniques for you. All right, so I'm going to try and keep this to about a 20-minute video if I can. I will probably wind up doing 2 videos. Please take the time to watch these. I think they really are going to help you. All right, so let me start with the first one here. What I did, I just dragged your PDFs into Adobe Illustrator. I put them on a layer, and I did create an artboard for each one. But I put each of the logos on the layer. I had to cover up the other parts of the colors and such here, and then on layer 3 I'm just going to start working. I also went ahead and I dropped the opacity on these 4 just so that I could use different techniques to copy them better. Alright, so I'm going to do all my work on layer 3 here, and I'm going to start with Upper Crust Bakery. Okay, so Upper Crust Bakery, this particular logo, I thought would be an interesting one to demonstrate the use of negative space, and also how that background color can be used with the Pathfinder tools to cut through and to create a very simple but very effective logo really easily. Okay, so you'll be surprised how quickly this can be created. All right, so let me start with creating an oval. Okay, and I'm going to make that in a black. Okay, I always work in black first. It's just the easiest thing for me to do. Okay, I'm going to drag that down. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it. I use my keyboard shortcuts for a few things. I try not to do too much because I know it gets confusing for you guys if you can't see my fingers in action. But copy and paste is a keyboard shortcut you should all probably use. Okay, now to create this cream filling, I'm going to make it with considerably less bumps because I think it's going to work a lot better for this, but there is a little shortcut. I'm going to actually start with this, and I'm going to go up to Effect and down to Distort and Transform, and I'm going to use Zigzag. You'll love this little trick. Okay, I'm going to click on Preview. Okay, you can already see something that happens here. Okay, you can also do this. Alright, but I'm going to stick with corner, and I'll show you why in just a moment. You can adjust the number of bumps, the depth of them. You can do a number of different changes here. Okay, but I'm going to keep this fairly simple. And that's probably about right, I think. I may even drop that down one more. No, I like it as an odd number better. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK on this. And then this is a nice little thing that I'm going to show you. Like right now, this is still an oval, but it happens to have an effect on it. Well, instead of having an oval with an effect on it, what I want to do is actually make my stroke fit this shape. So I'm going to go up to Object, Path, and Outline Stroke. You can also do Outline, Path, Expand Appearance. It'll do more or less the same thing. Okay, when you click that, now I have a point on each one of these little sections. So what I'm going to actually do now is go in here, use my Convert Anchor Point tool, and I'm going to convert each of these corner points into a smooth point. Okay, when you do this, remember it can sometimes twist like this, so you just have to untwist it. Okay, and then you can adjust the depth of that curve as you like it. You can also make them a little irregular, which is what I'm going to do with this. So I'm going to have some of these a bit larger and some of these a bit smaller. Okay, but I'm basically just taking that cream filling basically and adjusting it the way I like it. Okay, now you could make these all perfectly, clean and neat and even and symmetrical, but for a more naturalistic appearance, I'm going to do that different. But this is just the Convert Anchor Point tool, and it converts those corner points, which forms those sharp corners, into a smooth, rounded surface. Okay. And I'm not even going to worry about doing the top because it's going to get covered up anyway. And remember that twist thing. You just got to untwist it. Okay, don't be scared of little things like that. They're easily remedied once you know a few tricks. Okay, and Adobe Illustrator is all about tricks. That's really all it is about. Okay, so I'm just going to adjust that a little bit further. I want one to stick out a bit more than the others. There we go. Alright, so now you see what I have here. Now I'm going to go ahead and take this shape and I'm going to fill it with white. Okay, there is no stroke on this. Then I can take this and I can overlap it here. And again, I want this to be a little off center. I don't want it to be perfect. Okay, I might adjust a bit further, but I do need a little bit more edge over there. Okay, now I'm going to take this oval, the original oval, I'm going to copy and paste again, and this sits right on top. Alright, so you can already see kind of how this works. I'm going to go ahead and align the top and the bottom because I do want those straight. I'm going to use my align tools. Alright, now here's the real secret. I'm going to take my cream filling and my bottom piece, okay, because when you go to print you don't want a lot of extraneous pieces that aren't necessary. Okay, so you want to delete any objects that you don't need. Okay, so I'm going to take these shapes, this bottom and this center filling, I'm going to select them, I'm going to go to Pathfinder and I'm going to cut them. Okay, it's called dividing. Okay, I'm going to divide those objects. I'm going to ungroup them. Now I use my keyboard shortcut for ungrouping, but you can also ungroup right here. Right. So now I have this piece, I have this piece, and I have that piece. So now with this, you can see the shape, how it's been cut out, how you no longer have that bottom part, right? And now there's no white filling in here. The white filling's up here, and I don't need it, so I'm deleting it. So now what I have is this black piece on the bottom and the black piece on the top, and I can make those colors any I want. Okay, so again, I'm going to take those, I'm going to realign them because I just messed myself up on that. Okay, and now with these fields of color, oops, what is that? Come back here. Oops, I forgot I had this piece left over. I can delete that too. I don't need it. Okay, so now I'm going to take these two. I'm going to go ahead and group those together. I use my keyboard shortcut. You guys can come up and use group if you wish, but you can see the keyboard shortcut's a pretty easy one to remember. Okay, so these are now grouped together. So now I can make this any color I want. Okay, so I know one shade maybe about like that. Okay, that was one that you had chosen. You also had kind of that pinky red color, which I remember from when my sister brought me home some lovely macaroons from Paris. And she had this beautiful color on them. Oops, of course you actually have to have that selected. There we go. Okay, but you can choose whatever color you want, but you can see how quickly and easily you're able to create that, and the usefulness of those Pathfinder tools. Pathfinder tools and the pen tools are probably your two most useful tools within here. Okay, and now another thing I had mentioned to a number of you is the size of your name versus the size of the illustration. I know after we spend all this time on our illustrations, we're really tempted to keep that quite large, but really you need the name of the bakery in this case to be much larger. So in this case, I would recommend something to this effect. I don't know if I have that particular font, but I know I have a couple that are similar. This one may not be exactly the same, but it gives you, actually, no, it's not quite the same, but it's very close. All right, so I'm going to keep that a little bit larger. And my computer is painfully slow lately. I'm going to have to get a new one very soon. Bummer. In fact, it's even more slow today for whatever. Oh, because I'm recording at the same time. Okay, no problem. We're going to have to shortcut this. All right, so in comparison to the size of this, I'm going to want that font somewhere up here. And I could use bakery in all caps down here in the same font. I could use a separate font. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. But I would recommend that you take it. Actually, another option that you could do, if you don't mind kind of that off-center look, come here. Okay, there's a lot of different ways you can kind of align this stuff. It doesn't all have to be centered. You could also do this, in which case I would probably make this small enough so it could fit under crust. Okay, and you do need to be careful in your alignment. Oh, this is really slow when I'm recording. Holy moly. Okay, but you kind of get the idea. Yeah, okay. What else can I close here? It's going to ask me now for all that. I'll leave that one going. Yeah, we can quit this too. Just going to quit everything to try and speed this baby up. Yes, yes, we know. Sorry, guys. Don't mean to distract you here. Okay. Oh, golly. Don't save. Yeah, they're all fine. Okay. All right. See if we can go a little bit quicker. Anyway, you can adjust this size. Not just the size of the font. Oh, come on, baby. But you can also adjust the kerning over here. And the kerning is simply the space between the letters. Okay, so the kerning is something you guys will need to adjust on a number of different things. Sometimes you have to hand kern letters too, but as much as possible you can use the tools at your disposal here. But once you've decided on the size, you may or may not want to kern that further. You could also add a slight weight to the font if you need to. Okay, so 0.25, maybe a 0.5. Okay, it's a pretty subtle difference. Okay, but once you have that looking as you like, okay, this is not perfect, but I don't want to spend too much time doing this. I would space this so that it lined up absolutely dead perfect with the edge of my C and the edge of this T. I would kern it and adjust it until it was perfect. It's something you really do need to spend the time doing. Okay, that's if you wanted it in that off-center thing. Now, if you want it dead center, then that's different. You could do it smaller and in the center. Okay, you could do it in the same size, and you could space it. You could do it the same size and keep it smaller like this. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can line this up. But you can see already that the size of the font and the size of the illustration are a little bit different than what they were before. I would actually take that down a little bit further, so that in the hierarchy of this, the name of the bakery gets precedence over the illustration. All right. All right, let's move on. Okay, so that's a couple tricks on that one. Now on this one, I wanted to show you guys a couple things. One was the shaping of the leaf. There's a couple different ways to do that. Two, I want to show how using a white outline and how you can separate those color fields. And three, what happens to text if you don't use create outlines. Okay, so in this particular case, this font, I'm trying to remember which one it was, but I did not have the font that she chose on my machine. So when I imported this graphic, since it didn't have the text as outlines, it was still text. And since I didn't have that particular font, it just substituted, it looks like two different fonts on top of each other. And I'm not sure why it did that, but it did. And it did that because I don't have the font. So something you have to do on any logo that you ever create, once you have finished with it and you're perfectly happy with everything about it, you need to do something called create outlines. And I'm going to show you this part first. Okay, so let's say that you've been working really hard on a logo and you've decided that this particular font is the one that you love. Okay, I would not use this, by the way, for this particular logo, but just for grins, I'm going to show you what it looks like. Okay. Okay, so this has a 1-point stroke on it. Okay, the kerning is pretty wide. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the kerning again just to kind of remind you guys what it looks like. By the way, you never want to pick up your font, come back here, and stretch it to make it fit. Never ever stretch your font in that manner because you can never be consistent about it. And when it comes to consistency across your entire stationery package, it's really, really important. Okay, so never stretch your font by grabbing that box and pulling it to the size you want. Okay, never do it that way. If you must stretch it, then you need to use the tools here, vertical and horizontal scaling, and then write down these numbers for your final selections and use them consistently through your entire stationery project. Okay, now right now this is still text. I can still use all of my character palette. I can do all caps. Okay, I can do lowercase caps. I can change my kerning. I can change my leading, my scaling, my baseline. I can change any of these things that I want to right now. Okay, it is still text. I can even run a spell check right over here. Okay, it's still text. But once I'm finished with everything that I want to do on this particular piece of text, and there's nothing else I need to change on it, I'm 100% finished. What I'm going to do is come up to Type and Create Outlines. And what this does is it makes each individual letter a separate object. Okay, now right now they are grouped together, so I'm going to go ahead and ungroup those. So now I can select a single letter and I can adjust it. For instance, maybe I need to go in to these A's, which right now are rather difficult to read. Maybe I would select these points and move them down. Whoops, not that far down. Okay. And then I could delete that one. And then go in, grab these. Okay, and if you need to select more than one point, you can use your Shift key. Just like selecting more than one object, you use your Shift key. Okay, but even a subtle change on that A makes it much more legible. Okay, now this is probably not a font I would use on many logos. It's got a few kind of weirdnesses about it that I would be uncomfortable using this for a logo. It's also not particularly easy to read. Okay, but just for grins, we're going to use it for this. Okay, but now once I have my logo, or I'm sorry, my text completed, and I have done Create Outlines, which is right here. Okay, it's grayed out now because I've already done it, but this is where it is, right underneath Type. Okay, once I've done that, I also need to do something about that stroke on the outside. Okay, I don't want to have an object with a stroke of the same color if I can avoid it. There's really no reason for that complexity. So what I'm going to do is select it, go into Object, Path, Outline Stroke. I showed you this a few minutes ago. Same story. Okay, it now creates a separate object of the stroke and the fill. Okay, now I can ungroup those and I can pull parts away. Okay, probably wouldn't want to, but you can if you need to. Okay, but better yet, I'm going to select all of it and I'm going to use my Pathfinder tool to now create one solid object out of that entire thing. Okay, so it no longer has a stroke on it. It's just a solid fill. And this is really what you want in your final logo. Okay, it cleans everything up and it makes everything more simple. Okay, so once you've really decided that this is exactly how you want your text to look, you do want to go through and do create outlines, and then you want to outline your stroke, and then you want to use your Pathfinder tools. This is a shape mode, okay, and it basically combines it into a compound shape. Okay, it's unite is what it's actually called. All right, but you really want to use that. It will save you a lot of grief in the future. Okay, so that's the text part about this one that I wanted to show you. Go ahead and pull that down. Group all that together. Zoom back out. Okay, pull it down out of the way. Okay, now the other thing I wanted to show you on this logo was how to make a separate color field, or how to place color fields on top of each other but have them separate. Okay, I also want to show you a couple different ways of building this leaf, okay, which is a pretty simple object for you to build. Okay, I'm going to start by building the leaf. Start with an oval. Okay, I'm going to come and I'm going to adjust my points. I'm going to pull that one down, pull that one in. You can see how easy a leaf can be created. Pretty simple, right? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn it. Okay, now to create this line here, I'm going to actually use my pen tool. And it's going to give it a stroke of white. Okay, and you could do a couple different ways you could do this leaf. I'm going to follow what she was doing. Okay, and this pen tool, I know it's difficult for a lot of people, but it really is your best friend once you figure it out. You must figure out how to use the pen tool effectively if you're going to be doing Illustrator. Okay, it really is your best friend. Okay, now in this case, I need to make this a point up here. I'm going to use my Option key, go on the end of the handle, push down my Option key, and I'm going to swing that around. Okay, so now these two handles are no longer working in tandem. They're now separate. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fill this with white. I can adjust my points a bit further if I wish. Okay, I tend to be picky on my curves. You know, some people are. It's just one of my things. Can't help it. But I will try to be a little less picky just for the sake of time today. All right, but let's say that I love that. It was absolutely what I wanted. Now again, I don't want a final logo with this white thing floating around. Mostly because when I place this on another colored background, this white thing is going to be sticking out and it's going to look really strange. What I would want is for the background color. Okay, if this was a dark green leaf and I would have put it on a light green background, I don't want this white vein to show up. I would want it to be the background color, right? So in this case, I'm going to select both these objects, go back to my lovely Pathfinder tools, and you'll notice I leave them open all the time. There are certain tools I just leave open because I use them all the time. Okay, I also have these dragged off. Okay, I'm going to use my divide again. I'm going to ungroup my objects. Then I can grab these pieces. And now this is simply a black shape. Okay, see how the path cuts in now? So now if I were to put this on another color background, for instance, okay, this will not be a pretty color, but just for grins, object arrange, bring to front. Okay, so now the background color, whatever this black leaf sits on, will show up underneath the leaf as part of the vein. All right, so now I have my leaf complete. I'm going to make that a little bit larger. So actually, I'm going to, I'll show you this down here in just a sec. We'll need a comparison in a moment. Okay, we'll use that in a second. Okay, so now we have these two pieces completed. Okay, I did the paw earlier just because, in the sake of time, I didn't want to spend the time doing it. Okay, so now what I have is a paw print, which I'm going to make smaller. Actually, I'm going to make the leaf larger. Make it a little bit easier for us to work with. Okay. I have these created. I went ahead and I grouped it together, but I am going to make it a little bit smaller. Okay, and she wanted that paw print to sit on top. Okay, something close to that. Okay, now if she were to use different colors, I forget what colors she had used on these, but just for grins, again, here, let's object arrange, let's bring that paw to the front. I'm sure I'm going to butcher the colors on this, but I just want you guys to see what this is going to look like. Now first off, I have a black stroke on here. I do not want that black stroke. Okay, you really don't want to outline all your objects with a black stroke. It just looks amateurish, and it adds more complexity to your image that you really don't need. Okay, so eliminate strokes whenever you can. Now, having said that, you also can see that I have a color field on top of a color field here. Okay, it vibrates against the eye, it makes it hard to print, and if you ever have to work in monochrome, then clearly you're going to lose all your object. Oops. Ah, you are slow today, friend. There we go. Okay, so now you lose all your definition. So what you need to do is give it a white stroke. Okay, it's going to have to be a reasonably thick one. I'm going to also make it a little bit bigger because you don't want the overlap of the stroke either. You want enough of a color. May have to move those toes a little bit. Yep. Oh, this poor machine is slow. Alright, so now I have my toes, better space, so that I will have some of that leaf color shining through all these different areas, but because of the white, it's going to still define it enough. Okay, I'd probably still play with that quite a bit more, but you get the idea. Alright, so now I have my paw print. I'm going to regroup that because it does make it easier to work with. Okay, and I have a stroke on here. Now I do not want that stroke again in my final product. So what I will do again is go to Object, Path, outline my stroke. Okay, zoom in, you can see how we have a separate stroke. Okay, now I'm going to select the leaf as well. So I have all the paw print and the leaf selected. I'm going to go down to Divide Objects again. I'm going to ungroup everything. And for some reason I always hit it twice. I don't know why, but I do. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to find all the white parts and I'm going to delete them. Okay, and you have more in here than you think you have. Okay, so you have to select multiple times. You also will need to take all your black parts like this one and combine those. Okay, so that you have a solid white here. You see how, I don't know if you guys can see this very subtle white line separating the two parts of the paw print here. But I'm going to select both those black areas and I'm going to unite them. That's a solid piece. Okay, and again you have to get all those white bits. So there's different ways of doing this, but you can also use some of your select tools depending on what else you have on the page. But bottom line is you got to get them all. And if you're not sure, it can be a problem later. You will find it when you test your theory in a moment. Okay, so whoops, undo that. Undo is also another keyboard shortcut you really have to have. You got to know undo. It's a lifesaver. Come on, thank you. Alright, so I think I got all my white shapes. Actually, I'm going to undo and make sure I still have one so that you guys can see where you'll notice it. Alright, so now I'm going to take this entire object. I'm going to make a copy of it. Come down to the green background. So imagine this is a green sheet of paper and you want your logo to float on top of it. Okay, you see how now you can have a monochromatic logo and still be able to see those separate pieces? Okay, and you also see the one white piece that I purposely forgot. So now I can say, oh yeah, got to get rid of that one. Okay, and you just delete it. Okay, but now this is the logo. Now you can have these as different colors if you want to. Maybe you want these, not outlined. Maybe you do want these to be in different colors. And again, forgive me, I forgot what colors you had selected, but for grins. Let's put all these in a gray. Alright, and maybe this would be in a deep green. Probably have to be a darker green than that. We'll see. I double clicked on that, by the way, if you never need to adjust your color. Double click on the color, give you a better view. Alright, but you get the idea. So now this can actually float on different backgrounds. I'm still moving the back. Okay, let's delete that. Okay, so now you can float this logo on different backgrounds and it will survive quite nicely on all different colors. Alright. So that's what I mean when I'm saying to a lot of you, I think I must have written this at least on 15 of y'all, to separate your color fields with white or background color. Okay, this is what I was talking about, and it really is a critical way to do this. It really helps your logo survive so that you don't have color next to color. Color next to color gets muddy, it's difficult to reproduce, and it becomes a real pain in the butt when you're dealing with a monochromatic logo. Okay, so you need to separate your color fields and then you'll have it much easier. Alright. Okay, I'm going to stop this demo here and I'm going to do part 2 where I talk about these two. Alright? So allow me to stop and I will be back with you in a few minutes.